Welcome. So this is an invite to you if you want to take a look at behind the scenes of who it is that created the forensic healing system, university coded, and plus a whole lot of other self-development courses, as well as freeing the unloved girl. Well, I grew up in an average neighborhood, in an average family, but it wasn't like that behind the scenes. I grew up in a house of abuse, sexual, physical, and emotional abuse from my father. And my father didn't particularly like me. He could sense I didn't like him, and it was as if I could see through him. So I was a target, and the whole family will even say I was targeted because I got this sense he wanted to control me and I had to bow to him, but I refused to. But if I did, I would have got a lot less beatings. So I grew up wishing I was dead. I just couldn't understand why anyone would want to live on this planet when there's so much suffering. But of course, I was coming from my perspective. But I spent a lot of my time as a gypsy. My mum would have called me a gypsy. I was barefoot and I just ran around carefree. And I just loved animals. And if there was an animal on the street, I would find it and I would talk to it and play with it. There was actually one animal across the road over the fence from a paddock where we lived. And I found it and it looked uncared for. It didn't look like it was bathed at all. So I picked it up, pulled it over the fence, took it home, gave it a bath, clipped it and cleaned it up, and then just popped it back over the fence. But I took great satisfaction in just having animals around me and taking care of them. And I did end up with a dog when I was young, still in primary school, because it kept following me home. And the people that own the dog said they were barely home. And so they asked if we would want the dog, if we would keep it, since it kept following me home. And fortunately, my parents said yes, and we kept him. He was a border collie, and I loved him very much. One of my first spiritual experiences occurred around the age of 8, and that was when I would go to 6:30 a.m. Mass in the morning. I just had this yearning to try and, I think, heal myself probably, and I would go to church trying to get some relief or do some connection. I didn't really know at the time what I was doing, but my brother was an altar boy, so he would serve on these early masses, and I would just go because he was there. Not that I walked to church with him. We would just go individually. So one time I was there and Mass finished, and then after Mass they had confession. So I thought, oh, I'm a sinful, bad person. I've got to go to confession and confess all my sins. And so I did, but I felt really bad that I didn't really tell the priest what a bad person I was. I didn't really give him the truth. I just said the regular, disobedient to my parents and not nice to my brothers and sisters. And then he gave me my 10 Hail Marys and 5 Our Fathers to say, and that was my penance. And I went and did that. And then as I was walking out of the church, this sudden, incredible, euphoric feeling came over me. It was as if I was transported into heaven. And I just felt this incredible love and this incredible pureness that just brought so much joy and beyond what I've ever experienced. I really felt that I'd been in heaven or was in heaven at that moment. And it was just so healing for me. And what was bizarre about it was I'm thinking, why am I getting this feeling when I'm such a bad person and I just didn't even say the right things in confession, yet God is telling me he loves me. And as I had that experience, maybe it was for 30 seconds, my brother walks by, and he's a year and a half older than me. And my brother walked by and I said, "Did you feel that?" And then he just ignored me and kept walking. And I was just like in awe. And that was a really profound experience that never left me, and it always stayed inside me. And I think that was part of my yearning to find a spiritual food and spiritual upliftment for the rest of my life. After I completed primary school, I went to an all-girls secondary school, and I was quite studious up to about year 8. That was 2 years into the secondary school. And then I just went nuts. I just rebelled. I couldn't stand the abuse at home. I couldn't stand all the turmoil inside me and all the suffering and all the suppression, because my father would ground us. He would tell me that I'm not allowed to go out. And that was like living in a jail, because I hated home and I hated him. And then we'd get beaten. And then we didn't, as siblings, we weren't very close at all, just because there was just chaos in the home. And so I really struggled, and so I rebelled. I smoked, I drank, I did drugs, I partied. Went downhill from year 9. And then at the age of 23, I went to Europe and met up with some friends, and we partied. We went to the Greek islands, we went to France, we went everywhere. And then I went to Turkey, and then I followed this Turk to Florence, Italy, where he had another residence. And of course that was short-lived, but there I was in this beautiful town, Florence, Italy, and I met the Mormons there, and I got baptized. And I spent 3 years there in Florence, and I absolutely loved it. It was like I was home. I just felt, these are my people. And that's where I met a gorgeous Florentino man, and he had just joined the church around the same time I had joined, and I felt he was like my soulmate. We were inseparable. It was like this incredible connection that I've never ever had. And he was really a beautiful man, and very kind and funny and just perfect. But he left the church just before we were going to get married. I got engaged and he left the church. And then I had these promptings not to marry him. And it was a really, really tough time. And I chose not to marry him because I just couldn't go against what I felt God had given me. He'd given me this, giving this soul food to me. He'd given me this new life, and I felt that I owed it to him to not go against this church that had just given me so much love and light. And it was really hard. So after we decided not to get married, I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't want to stay in Florence with all these memories of not marrying my soulmate, the man of my dreams, the man that was going to be my future. It was really hard. So I decided to serve a mini mission, and that was in Rome. And we're in a location called La Dispoli, and that is where there's a lot of refugees there. And they would be just abandoned in this location. And on the wall, I remember reading on one of the walls where one of them was staying, it said, "How can I die when no one knows I'm alive?" And it was quite amazing that you've got these people that probably are alone. No one knows that they're even there, and they've just left family, and then they're left in Rome. So this is like many years ago. We're talking around, a few decades ago that this occurred. So it was really fascinating. It was very spiritual, and I was very led and very guided. Even though the Mormon church was healing for me, I really struggled in it because it made me face all the things that I tried to suppress. And that was me thinking that I wasn't worth anything. In fact, I thought I was the dirt on the floor. I thought that I was worthless. I had nothing to offer, because that's what my dad would say to me. He'd call me an idiot. He'd call me all sorts of things. He'd even call me disgusting names. And I really struggled because when I was in the Mormon church, when you have no distractions and you go into peace in a way of prayer as a form of meditation, all of my turmoil started to come up. And that is where, when I'd moved back to Australia and I got a job back in Australia, I would start to cry for no reason, or I would just spend nights crying my eyes out, and I was a hot mess. It just came all up. And then I had to deal with, as well, I had chronic fatigue started to kick in, and I had chronic neck pain because then I endured 3 whiplash injuries, and then I also had a lot of the abuse from childhood, and I was poisoned when I was 18. I ate arsenic. It was put in a meal. I drank barley water, which is full of disgusting microbes and parasites and all those sorts of things. I was actually really self-destructive with myself. It was like I wanted to die. These unhealthy habits was kind of trying to urge it on a subconscious level. So I had a lot of years overcoming health conditions, spiritual conditions, emotional conditions. And it was the chronic pain that I endured that led me to this journey now, because I just was brought to my knees and I just would say, I'll do anything if you can get rid of this pain that was in my neck. And what I'd realized over the years that toxins, like injury sites, and because I had had the whiplash injuries and also the physical beatings from my dad, my body was a mess and it would really be tough. I couldn't concentrate. I already had dyslexia. I had the foggiest head. I couldn't remember anything. So I had to undo all these things that put me in struggle. And I've definitely had a lot of sacrificial martyrdom type of programs running, because even though I joined the Mormon church and then there was a point where I left, I was still struggling. I got married, and that was just a disaster who I married. His background and the baggage that came with that was an absolute disaster. Yet he did help me create forensic healing, and there was a lot of benefit of the things I had to learn, and he pushed me to find my self-worth because he definitely wasn't giving it to me. In saying that, I always have been led, and I was fortunate that my mother had said to me when I was a child, oh, who cares what people think? And then she would say, as long as you're happy, like, do that, okay, as long as you're happy. She almost said it as if like I would amount to nothing, but if you're happy, I guess that's a benefit. That's what it seemed like, but it sort of gave me permission, because it was a subliminal program that's running in the back of my mind that I could do what I wanted to do if it was going to make me happy, and not to care what other people thought. So I'm sure if I didn't have those beliefs, I wouldn't be here today. I was just too much of a disaster, too much of a hot mess, and I had to deal with so much that I think that was my saving grace. So creating the forensic healing system really came about because I started to learn alternative healing, because there was a moment when I was at the Anthony Robbins Date with Destiny when he was in Queensland, and I was really suffering from neck pain there, and it was just really terrible. And I was staying at my sister's, and she said to me, oh, well, why don't you see this guy? He's weird and different. And I thought, okay, well, weird and different sounds great, because all the chiropractors, all the massage therapists just aren't helping me. So I went and saw this guy called David, and he started to just touch points on my body, and he was testing things. I mean, I don't even know what he was doing, because I had no clue what all this energy healing was. And I remember him thinking he was thinking I was really out of balance. But when I stood up, I thought, you didn't even touch my neck, yet I just feel this surge of energy coming through me. This is amazing. And that's when I heard the still small voice say, this is what you're going to do. This is the journey you are to take. So I wanted to understand more about energy healing and kinesiology. So I attended many courses, and I got healings from different practitioners, and I just gravitated towards it. I just loved it. And then I started to become I was an instructor, and then I created Quantum Healing, which was the name of my business. And then I got married, and then my husband at the time did a health healing product. We would travel together, and he would promote his product, and I would do healing sessions. And he said, well, so many people would come up to him and say they wanted to do what I did during the healing sessions. And then there were times when I would get so excited about the healing sessions and how I would piece it all together. I'd get the story of how come they've got what they've got, and I would piece it together from their past. And he said to me, you know what you are? You are a forensic healer, and you need to create a system called forensic healing. So that was the birth of forensic healing. So I spent a lot of time writing the forensic healing system, and I was quite amazed that I actually wrote it, because it was during that time that I still suffered from chronic fatigue. And I wrote the first 5 modules of the forensic healing system. Then over time I added 2 more called Soul and Awakening. And during that time my health got better, and my mind became clearer, and I was far more connected. So each module just got better and better. And then he had this bright idea that we should go on tour in the USA. And I just used to go, okay, whatever you say. Like, he would make all the decisions, and I sort of basically would just say yes, because I looked at him as the expert, the great entrepreneur, and he believed in me. So we went to the USA on this tour, and it was quite amazing and quite exhausting.
I felt an opening within I started in my chest and then it moved throughout my entire body.
It has a pattern of sacrifice. Sacrifice is where you give more than what comes back. You're kind of programmed to be the helper.
What instant kind of responses came from the patients, people who were on the table, and the instant connections that they made, and the healing that evidently occurred because they had no pain anymore.
Something has been released that's been stuck in there. Like in you or blocking you?
Always.
Oh, really?
Always.
Oh, really?
Ever since I was born.
Oh, really? Oh, my God. Because it looked like it was past life, in fact.
Oh, it came in with me.
Really?
It's been a cloud with me.
Really?
Oh, my. It was before birth.
Really, yeah.
I've done drinking my own urine. I've done cupping.
Oh my God!
To get rid of this block, this forensic healing system. Like, I will tell everybody about it because
Thank you.
I have tried off the hook. People are like, "Oh my God, what you haven't done!"
Really?
Like, I'm open. I'm open
Wow.
to everything and
Yeah,
anything.
I can tell you. Yeah.
I mean,
Great
I've
energy.
been to
Yeah.
China.
Yeah. Wow.
I've been to these really strange countries where they do real weird stuff.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay, somehow I'm going to find what's meant to be because there's something in me that's not. And to think I found it here today.
I came with a question of whether or not I'm a healer, and after she healed somebody, it came to me in my mind. It came to me that I am a healer. I started to cry, and I was just overwhelmed with this feeling of just love, knowing that, wow, I am a healer, and that's why I was directed to come here, and I'm so happy I did.
What a gift! What a gift! Like, who knew? Who knew?
An interesting perspective on healing. Have you ever heard of something called forensic healing?
I'm Tony Sweet. I am here. Marisa.
Her name is Marisa Russo. She's a very, very special healer from Australia. Goes into the body, just kind of like an investigator would go through a crime scene. She's often called the Sherlock Holmes of healing.
Yeah, so can you walk without the cane? Can you walk at all? As you lie there, Julie, can you feel the pain? Right, so it's a lot of pain.
It was sad to see them go.
It's with somebody and it's a negative energy. You are now living the life for you, no one else. You are empowered. You're going to live a life of freedom, a life for you, empowered, strong. Great, that looks good.
The woman's energy is incredible.
I really freak some people. I go, I do move to energy, and then I go, that's as weird as I get, but that's what I'm telling you now. They're kind of looking at me going, what's going to happen? That's pretty good. Look at that.
I think she's an angel in human form.
I just felt so light, and the stress has left me. Like, I just feel happy, elated.
And I feel like anything is possible right now.
It's almost like being in love.
Came to the root of the problem for me, and next thing you know, the pain was gone, literally gone.
People talk about shift, but that was the first time I think I've actually experienced feeling a shift.
I haven't felt that way in many, many years.
Incredible waves of energy, and like waves in the ocean of energy coming through me.
It's just amazing the way that I feel. I feel so relaxed and so happy, and it's amazing.
I love you, seriously. Thank you.
I love her. She's the best. I love her energy. It's so clear, warm, down to earth.
I finally, for the first time in a long time, knew what it felt like to be whole.
Well, I feel so blessed.
Wish I had seen her 10 years ago.
And thank you so much, Marisa, for coming all the way from Australia to the United States and helping me to heal some very deep wounds that I was still carrying in my heart. I did not expect the profound healing that I received today. Thank you so much, Marisa.
But there was a moment that happened when I was in Los Angeles, and I remember I had the day before I was at the Bodhi tree and I did a presentation. It was fully booked. We had standing room only, which I was so amazed. I thought, well, like, these people don't even know me, and LA is full of spiritual people and gurus. But it was really successful. And then the next day I had booked a massage. This massage, beautiful lady was going to come to my hotel room and give me a massage. And then we decided to go to Agape, which is where Michael Beckwith would be. And I just went along with whatever they said. So I got the massage, which was really, I just thought it was really amazing. It's just what I needed. And then we went off to Agape and we're in the front seat somewhere. And then Michael points at me and says,
I see the light above her head. Weren't you at the Bodhi tree yesterday? That was you, right? I wasn't there, but I know about you. You're a tremendous healer. Would you come up for a moment, please? I should have a piece of paper with your name on it and stuff like that, but I don't. But I can see, I saw you sitting there, and I could recognize your spirit. And so I knew that you were in the healing arts. Yes?
Now, I had no idea that was going to happen because his wife sang this beautiful song just prior to him asking me on stage. And I was just mesmerized by his wife's song and the love that came from the music, and I was actually quite teary, and I was just in a different world. And the next minute he's calling me up on stage. And then I've had crazy other adventures, like going to Uluru, where I met Oprah. Not saying that that's a great thing today, because I don't think of her the same way I used to think of her. But prior, I used to admire her, and she was on my vision board. And I had some clients that one came from Uluru, and another said, oh, you've got to go to Uluru. And they said it, I got the message within 2 weeks, two clients telling me about Uluru. And I just said to my husband, I said, oh, we got to go to Uluru because I'm just getting that message. And so he booked the tickets, and he booked the tickets the weekend that Oprah was going to be at Uluru, but nobody knew about it because we got a whisper of it, because when I thought I want to go to Uluru because I want to meet a witch doctor, because I was up to the 5th module in forensic healing, which was about the spirit, and I wanted to meet a witch doctor. I want to find out what they do, and so that, and how, how they work, how energy works, so that I can reverse this stuff. I can reverse stuff off people, or I can understand more, because no one really talks about how energy really works, or how come you can get curses. There's just so much to it. No one really talked about that. So I did end up meeting somebody, an actual Aborigine guy that trusted me for some reason, and he said, he goes, Oprah's going to be here on, I think it was Monday, and we were going to leave Sunday. And he was the only one that knew. There was we would ask around and people just had no idea. So we changed our flight, and it was fascinating. The story is quite fascinating because we changed our flight to the next day. He didn't tell us where she was going to be. And the very day that she was going to be there, we just went to this place called the Cultural Center. And that's just sort of visitor center. And I'm sitting there all glammed up thinking, well, I guess she'd come here, wouldn't she? She'd come to this cultural center. And nothing was happening there. And so my husband said, well, let's just go off on another walk. So we went off and we did this really long walk around this other sort of mountain area in the heat. And I said, look, I just want to go home. I'm done. I'm over this. I surrender. It's not happening. And he said, no, you know what? Let's just pass by the shops where that Aboriginal guy was going to be again, and we'll have a chat to him. So we passed by there, and then we finally met up with him, and he said, oh, Oprah's on the Kania walk. And so we go, oh, and so we went to the Kania walk, and there was only 2 people on the Kania walk because it was during the later part of the day by then, and there was some Chinese people that didn't even know who Oprah was. And then we knew she was coming because all the security people were walking up and down and making sure the whole area is clear. So when she came by, we did have a moment to chat, and my husband was videoing it because he had his video then. I said, make sure you get this. And then for some strange reason, or so I realize now, was not meant to be, that footage we never got videoed. There was other footage that we've got of her walking by, and then I was interviewed by Channel 9 or Channel 10 about my experience because I was the only one that really met her down there. And that was quite big because, I said, well, Oprah came to me because I was in Uluru and she came to Uluru. It's not like I went to LA to meet her. So I just thought it's amazing how when you align yourself, how you can actually create what you want. And that's what I've noticed. I've noticed that I've really got to watch where I focus my energy. That's why I like to move away from anything that's negative, or not be part of negative conversations, or not try and fight with people or anything like that, because that would just generate and grow what you don't want. And I've just got a tiny example of how powerful our energy is. And that's just because I've got proof of this. You see, I can't prove everything, and I could give you a list as long as my arm, but this little thing I can prove because I captured a screenshot of it. And that's when I was learning about how this whole world is reversed, how everything isn't what it seems. And when the government say one thing, they actually mean the other. And so I was writing about this. I think I was writing the soul module at that time, thinking, yep, everything's reversed. Yeah, it's not what you think it is. And I was creating a password for this app that I had, and the password was Forensic Healing 111. I thought that's easy enough. I'll remember that password, and the password saver saved it. And then next time I went to go into the app, the password Forensic Healing 111 that I was actually manually putting in wasn't working. So then I went into the password saver, and it was actually put in reversed. It was 111 and then Forensic Healing written backwards, and that's what it was saved at. And I still have it saved as that today, that password, just to remind me of when we think something, we start generating it. And another time was when I was in Sydney and I was teaching 7-day live workshop, and I was talking about how we're moving towards energy, where, when we're become energy, then we know we're elevating, and that's where we're really getting to. And then we took a photo of the group, and then some of the people on the right hand side near me, you could see the pillars behind them. They had lines on the head of the pillars that were behind them. And that was quite extraordinary. And another interesting experience happened when I was in Sydney. And this is a reminder of why I'm careful about who I'm around. I feel words can enter me. If I'm open and connected to somebody, then I feel their words enter me, and then I feel that it actually code me. It can be really powerful. It doesn't happen all the time because I'm not always as open and connected with some people, but I can, when I'm in a healing session, or when I'm teaching, or when I really care about someone, my energy is open. So whatever they say comes into me, and I manifest for them what they say, and then I manifest it for myself. So I have to be really careful of when I'm connecting and who I trust. So this is something that I've learned over time. And when I was in a Sydney workshop, I was on my break, very open, of course, because I'd just been healing. And this student said to me, after I had sneezed, there was some dust in the air and I sneezed. And then she said, "Are you coming down with a cold?" And I felt the words enter me, and I just felt, I go, oh no. I'm like, no, don't. Because I felt them code me. And within 2 hours, I had the flu. And I think I had another 2 or 3 days to finish that week, but I was had a cold, and I knew when she said those words, they went in and I couldn't take them back. Because I couldn't reverse it that time now because I wasn't ready. So I've had personal experiences how powerful people's thoughts are, the words that they say, and people's intentions. And I've seen how I've had loads of accidents and it's all stemmed from someone's thoughts or someone's energy near me, or if someone is mad at me or wants to blame me, then I will suffer. Things will go wrong. And that was so powerful when I was with my ex, because he loved to blame me. And there were times when I'd end up in the hospital from things, just bizarre things happening to me, because when he blames me, he wants to punish me for doing something wrong. And I was punished, all right. Just the most bizarre things would happen. And I'd end up in hospital. Then he'd be even more mad because he'd have to take me to hospital. But I noticed that all stopped. All those bad things would stop when I finally left him. But when I've had other people be angry at me, I would have accidents, and then the image of their face would come, and I knew that I was having that accident, falling over or getting injured, was coming from that person. So I've had those connections that showed me how careful you've got to be with energy. But in saying that, I still say that I am the creator of that. Now I've realized what law of attraction is, and that we are the creator of everything. I've learned that by saying, okay, well, that did happen, but why did it happen? Why is that in my experience? And so that has been the journey of life. It's like, okay, these bad things are happening, but I'm still the creator. And that's what I'd always study. I'd always study why someone would heal and why they wouldn't heal. And I knew that the root of everything was energy. It was just always innately in me, because I would feel if I would do something wrong, or if I didn't tell the truth, I would feel it stain my soul. And when I was crazy and in my, teens and early 20s, I was crazy and I did things that I shouldn't have done. And I would feel it stain my soul even in my disconnected state. And so I got a sense that I had to follow my feelings and my instincts, but I also had to do the right thing. Now, the right thing isn't necessarily be obedient to what the government says or what other people are saying. The right thing is really being connected and following that inner guidance. And that is why we're here. We're actually here to develop that inner guidance, get that connection, and get that connection to source, because it always wants to help you. And as I look back on all my hardships and all my pain and suffering, that's gone along with a lot of joy. I've had very joyous moments, to the peace that I now live. I'm free of the pain. I'm free of being exhausted. I'm free of negativity. I have such a beautiful, pure life, and I have beautiful friends and just beautiful things happening around me, that I'm at that moment where I go, well, this is what it leads you to. And to get to this point means undoing abuse, because abuse is low vibration. So I want to move back into what I was talking about, the miracles that can happen in your life. And I know people experience amazing miracles, but how to experience more of them, and that is by connecting to source and connecting to yourself and keeping yourself as aligned as you can and as much as in integrity as you can. Because I look back and I go, I don't know if my focus was that good, because I was always feeling like I was struggling to get out of the pain or the chronic fatigue as I'm working. Even when I was teaching forensic healing, I kept on doing cleanses and I kept on growing myself, because when I would get something I didn't like, I would change. I just did that the whole time. I go, well, I don't like this, so I'm changing. But I want to tell you the little miracles that had happened, and that was when we went to sell our house. Anything to do with real estate was quite traumatic, because my dad was a real estate agent. And what I didn't realize, that I didn't heal the trauma inside me from all the beatings, because he would come home and beat us after his day at work, and we would often go to work with him. And so we were around real estate a lot. So there was a time when we went to sell our home, and we had already bought a house that cost more money for some crazy reason, and then the interest rates just went up, and we didn't sell the house. It just was too low. We decided to rent it. And while we're in the new house, we're stressing about, all these new bills and this high mortgage. Something crazy happened. For the 3 years we were there, we never got a gas bill. We paid like $35 a quarter just for the service fee, but the gas that heated the water and the gas stove and all of that, we were never charged for it. And then when we finally sold that house, a month prior, this guy comes around and says, I'm here to check your gas meter. And he did some adjustments to it. And then the first gas bill came in a month before we sold the house. It reminds me of a time when I was in the Mormon church and I was flying back from Rome to Australia, and I had probably 20 kilos over of luggage, and we were at the terminal checking in the luggage, and the guy goes, it's going to be X amount of money to take that through. And I didn't have the money. I mean, I spent every last cent on my mission. And so there were people there with me. There were missionaries and there was some members from the church, and we all got together and we huddled together and we prayed. We prayed that this would be okay. And then when I went back, the guy's like, no, you've got to pay. And I said, he goes, my supervisor isn't going to let this through. There's no way. And the supervisor looked really strict. She was like harsh and everything. And I said, can you please ask her? And he asked her and she said, yeah, put it through. And he looked incredulous. He goes like, what? So we often forget that Source is there to help us, or God is there to help us, and that people around us with that same intention have power and energy for us to create what we want and to support us. And that's why it's really important. And that's what I've learned over the years. It's been great being an instructor. It's been great doing demonstrations in front of people, because it's really pushed me to understand how it all works. Why do people heal and why don't they heal? And I've started to pull all that apart in a really deep level. I can't not stop thinking about why something didn't work, and then I get the answers. I'll tell you one crazy thing that did happen to me was on the Mormon mission. Now I've got to mention this one was pretty crazy. When I was with the missionaries, and we were in a group of 3, because normally missionaries are in a group of 2, and I was with 2 other girls. But because I was like the third wheel, because I had just jumped on to do the mission, they hadn't planned ahead. These missionaries were really there just to find themselves a husband. They like to marry what you call an AP, assistant to the president, because if you're an assistant to the president, your value goes up. That's kind of how they operate, and they weren't there really to do missionary work. But anyway, I was. So there was a time we're on the bus, we're on our P day, we're going to go off and go bowling with all the rest of the whole group of us, all the elders and all the other sisters. And while we're on the bus, the elders jumped on the bus and they just quickly, surrounded these elders and were quite rude. They actually turned their backs to me. The elders weren't rude, but these girls just kind of consumed them and just flocked to them. So I sat down and I thought, okay, well, they're not going to talk to me. I'll talk to you, God. And I just had this conversation with God, and I was quite sad, and tears were running down my cheeks. And we arrived at the location to go bowling, and we just kind of rock up there. And then when we got to the bowling club, there was all the APs there, assistants to the presidents and everyone else, and I just became an instant celebrity. They were going, Sister Russo, can I be on your team? What's the team going to be called? It's going to be called Rusty Russo. And I was like, seriously, I turned into an instant celebrity. And the other 2 girls are going, what's happening? And I'm just like, I just kind of like just rock and rolled with it. I didn't ask any questions. I was just kind of smiling to myself going, okay, all right then. And it was really quite magical. And we went home. No one said anything about it, except I'm sure they were scratching their heads. And then that memory stayed in me because it was just so profound. It just went from black and white. And it was only recently, like we're talking about decades later, that the epiphany came to my mind of what had happened. And that was President Pastor, who was the president of that mission. I know he would have, now I realize, he said to those missionaries, you make sure because he knew they were probably going on their P-Day, and he must have been talking to them and they must have said what they were doing. And he must have said to them, you make sure Sister Russo's taken care of. Because when we also had our final meal, like when we were leaving the mission, we would stay at the president's house for that final night, and he treated me like royalty there. He said, Sister Russo, you're sitting next to me. And it was like he saw the difference of my dedication to the other slack missionaries. And it was like he was looking at energy. So I've had just so many crazy, beautiful experiences and crazy, bad experiences, but it has taught me so much. So I'm going to finish off here because I think I've talked enough, and wish you a million blessings, abundance, healing, transformation, and freedom. So just keep following that inner guidance, keep still, keep aligned, and keep clear of all the negativity, and just ask your inner guidance to keep taking you in the direction that will take you to your greatness. So blessings and love. Take care.